Today we talk about Cry Havoc, a game that I picked up at Gen Con 2016. It is a game of planetary exploration and exploitation. Three races have found this planet, which is full of beautiful crystals that everybody wants. And so now these three groups are fighting on the planet against each other to gain control of profitable areas, and also against the native population, which is represented by these big, monstrous, mindless creatures that, okay, they were there before the interplanetary colonies decided to take control of their planet. There was a post-colonial voice in my head thinking, what if these are actually peace-loving, sensitive, art-inclined creatures, and we see them as mindless brutes because of the propaganda that we have been fed to justify our imperialist pursuit? No matter, the other three groups are coming, and you're going to be one of them if you want to play the game, and you're going to do your best to destroy the other parties, including the party that is indigenous to the planet, and you're trying to take control of wonderfully rich and profitable areas. A lot of different mechanics in this game, a little bit of deck building, air control, combat, resource management, many different moving parts. So let's get started now and see how the design works. Here you have a general look at the board. It is a mounted board, of course. It is double-sided, pretty large, very nice. It'll get a little crowded with all the stuff that you will be putting on it during the game. As you can see, in fact, the game does have quite a bit of components, and just a quick overview of them will take us quite a bit. So let's move on fast. Looking at the map, you can see it is divided in playable areas. Playable areas have symbols representing the terrain or terrains in that specific area. Those are those icons. That means that you can use battle cards with specific effects for those terrains in the places on the board that have those icons. Also here you have a number indicating number of crystals that go on the board at the beginning, and then you have an icon indicating that this is where you will have some of the native monsters, the Trog, that are the native aliens. Native aliens, what a paradox. They are aliens to you that are coming to this planet, trying to take this stuff. And here we have a token that indicates an exploration token. That is a random event that will occur. Now, in the game you control one of four races. We have the pilgrims that are good at extracting gems and have their own little production engine going on. Humans that are good at expanding, taking control of territory. Machines, resistance is futile, they just destroy all that they find, Terminator style. And then again the Trogs that are the native monstrous aliens from this planet. Actually, usually you use the Trogs only if you have 4 players. You assign them to a player only if you have 4 players. In other cases, they are non-playing factions. Their actions are automatic. The factions are very different from one another. As I said, you have miniatures representing them, and all miniatures for a race, for a group, are exactly the same, component-wise. Each group has a player rate, such as this one, with a nice round order turn structure. Here you have an area where you place a card representing a special ability that you have, and you may have multiple ones. On this other side, you organize these tiles here that are player rates, telling you the type of structure that specific race can build, and you also have a description of the kind of action that the structure can perform for you, the effect that you can activate when you activate the structure. There's a cost to build the structures, which is represented by these icons here, and a cost to activate it. We'll talk about that later. How do you pay for costs? How do you perform actions? Why? By using your cards. You start with a basic deck of cards, and then during the game you can acquire more cards, so there is a deck building element here. The cards can be used for the icons that you see here, and usually you can only use a single line. You choose which one. And sometimes there is a battle effect, so if you're using the card for a battle effect, you're not using it for the icons. Sometimes there is an effect that you use in conjunction with the icon, with the icons as indicated by the exclamation mark. Hooray! Also, there is one card in each player's deck that is the Enable Scoring card. Enable Scoring, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You have diamonds, gems. This is the point. These are the resources that players are trying to take control of. They are interchangeable. Green is worth 1, yellow 3, and red 5, and you place several of them on the board at the beginning of the game based on scenario instructions, based on setup instructions, and players will try to take control, of course, of areas with those. We have exploration tokens, as we said, that will go on the board. We have Trogs tokens that will go on the board. The exploration tokens, when revealed, will give you usually some benefits. There will be good things that happen, and the Trogs indicate that you're encountering some of those. So you find the Trogs, and pretty much this tile here that you will flip when you enter that area for the first time will tell you how many Trog encounters and also how many crystals will be added to the board. Cards, so there are also 4 types of cards. We said that there's a deck building aspect here, and these cards are based, are related to different types of terrain. So you can buy them from different decks. Also, as you can see from the icons, these cards specialize in different things. For example, these cards here will give you a battle effect that can be used when that terrain icon is present in an area where you're resolving battle, but also they will give you that kind of effect. You may expect an effect related to those icons. So, for example, yeah, they're still unique cards with some unique effects, or at least, you have multiple effects, but you can rely on certain icons being there and on the card representing the type of terrain. Now, at the beginning of each round, you will resolve events. There is a round track here. You'll put a round marker there, and you will put event tokens there. There are more than you will use in a single game, so you do not know exactly which ones you get. Once you get in the event resolution phase of a round, which is at the beginning, you simply flip the one that applies, the one that is right under where your present token is, and you resolve the effect. I'm not going to show the effect, so I'm not going to spoil the surprises. Actually, this is also where you place the score markers of the players. So during scoring, a player goes past one of these event tokens. As you can see, there are several on the board. If a scoring marker goes past, you move the event down with the next one. So when it gets to the event resolution, you may have to resolve several ones. Remember, you simply resolve the event or stack of events that's right before the scoring markers. And you resolve them, you remove them, and so on and so forth. That means that if that never happens, you never move these markers because no one goes past the marker with their scoring tile, that means that the game will last 5 rounds. 1, when you resolve the event that is there, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it will last up to 5 rounds, but it may last less. So first you resolve the events, then you will update the initiative that indicates the order in which things will happen. There will be actions during a turn that will alter the initiative for the following round. So here you have the one for the present round. Suppose that I'm the yellow player, I use an effect that will give me initiative next round, and then at the beginning of the next round, or I should say in the update initiative phase of the next round, you simply match the current initiative with the upcoming one. And that indicates the order in which actions will be resolved. Players refresh their skills if they use the skills in the previous turn, and players draw 4 cards from their decks. And finally, they get to perform actions. Now, the actions are very precious in this game because you do not have many. Remember I said there are up to 5 rounds in the game, and each round only has 3 actions. So you're going to take up to 15 actions in the game, and that is it. deal with it. So every time that the players take an action, each time after every player has taken an action, you move this by 1, so until all players have performed 3 actions for that round, and that the round is over. What are the actions? Well, first thing, how do you get the actions? You get them by spending cards, by discarding cards from your hand. Also, I didn't mention it, but there is a headquarter that you place on the board to indicate your starting area, and that's an important area because that's where you add reinforcements usually, unless there's special game effects. It's an area that cannot be taken from you and stuff like that. Now, actions that you can possibly take. You may choose to move, in which case you discard cards, and then you can move a number of figures equal to the number of arrow icons that you have discarded. Suppose that I discard these 2 cards for the move action, then I only look at the move action, move icons, which are the arrows, and I can move 2 figures, and figures move to an adjacent space. As simple as that. I may recruit new people, in which case I discard cards, but I only look at these icons here, the guy with the spacesuit, and I get a new recruit for each such icon that I spend when I am discarding cards as for part of my recruit action. You have the build and or activate structures. That is, with a single action, I can discard cards producing structure icons, and then I can spend those icons to build and or activate structures in any way. And that's very important because you have such few actions, at least that action allows you a little bit of flexibility. Structures come with tiles explaining what the structure does, with then actual counters representing where the structure is going to go on the board. So if I decide, for example, I'm going to spend 2 of those icons, and I'm going to place a power orb in a location where I have some of my people, maybe the situation is here, and I decide to also spend 2 of those icons to build a harvester, that kind of thing. I may also, as I said, spend actions to activate. So, for example, I decide to spend an action on a harvester that's on the board, and I activate it, and what it does is that it adds a crystal from the pool to my supply. These guys have a personal supply of crystals that allows them to perform special actions. That's kind of like the special thing, what they do better than others. So we have moving, recruiting, building, and activating structures, but also another action that you can perform is to draw cards. You get to draw 2 tactic cards, is the name of these cards. You draw 2, you keep 1, and that's it. And that's how you get more cards and more game effects into your deck. Nice cards. Finally, a very expensive action is to enable scoring. Each player has this big token here, and for an action you can put it here in that space. Only one player can enable scoring per round. That's why you mark that somebody has taken that privilege and nobody else will be able for that round. Also, you cannot enable scoring the last round, so there's going to be up to 4 scoring sessions being enabled through that action. And when you enable scoring, what happens at the end of the round is that you get to score each region that you control plus each crystal that you control, and the other players will still get to score each crystal that they control. So you get that extra ability, those extra points, if you are the one that enables scoring, but other people may still get something. A couple of other things, when you move, again, you resolve exploration tokens if you encounter them. You may encounter trogs. When you do so, when there are figures of more than one party in a space, a battle will occur at the end of the round. Also, you put a battle marker there to indicate that that's a, guess what, a battle area. There are several battle markers. They should be put down in order so that you resolve battles in the order in which they were triggered. And once there is a battle marker there, the bad thing, in a sense it can also be a good thing, is that no one can enter it, nor other parties, nor you yourself. Unless there's a game effect that allows you to do so, you cannot reinforce your own battle, the one that was triggered by your own movement or by somebody else's movement. So, for example, say this is the situation, then later in the round, the machines enter there, and so we place that marker. And something else happens in this area of the board. The humans are looking for trouble from the machines. And we're going to have a third battle. Once all three actions, remember, these actions here have been resolved, then you resolve all battles on the board in order. And the battle resolution is a thing of beauty. I really like it. It's abstract in nature, but it has a couple of smart twists that I have not seen anywhere else, and I really enjoy. A battle is resolved using this player aid here, and the players pretty much will place their miniatures on the three possible spaces representing priorities. Before the battle starts, you're going to decide how you're going to concentrate your forces, what are your priorities, where you're going to spend a lot of resources, and where is it that maybe you're not spending much. The attacker first and the defender next, which gives the defender a huge advantage, will place all of their miniatures on the board. Suppose that here, I don't remember who was the attacker in my example, I'll suppose that the humans are the attackers here, and they decide to place their miniatures like that. These guys have two miniatures, and they decide to do that. But I'll add a couple of other things to the board so that you see how things work. So players place their miniatures on the three areas of the battle board, and then they alternate playing cards. You can play tactical cards and resolve battle effects that can influence enormously who is going to be at the board, on the board, and where. Once players are done playing cards, you resolve the battle. You resolve the battle by going through all three priorities in order, so from top to bottom. The first one is majority. The player that has the majority of figures in this area will retain control of that region, and the opponent will have to move. Also, something important, when you start a battle, you add a crystal, which is a big incentive to start battles. I guess there's just so much bullets and lasers flying around. They are destroying mountains, and crystals fall out of those? No idea. But diamonds are added when you start a battle and when you're resolving it. First, the first box is majority to determine who will control the region. The opponent, if somebody's still alive in the party of the opponent, will have to retreat. If there is a tie, the defender retains control. Then you look at capture prisoners objectives. That allows you to take, if the player with the majority will take a captive from an enemy. So the player that has majority, in this case the humans, can take any one miniature from the battle display and put it in front of themselves, and now the owning player will need to spend victory points to get that miniature back. But since it can be from anywhere, suppose that this guy decides to take this as a prisoner. So here you're sending people scouting the vicinities to try to capture some prisoners. And here attrition, you have some people on the hills acting as snipers, or using artillery from a distance. This is not about a majority. Each miniature that is here destroys a miniature of the opponent. As simple as that. Super simple. Also, you gain a victory point for each miniature of the opponent destroy using this ability here. And also, after a battle, the player that gains or retains control of the region gains 2 victory points for that. So a lot of interesting interactions here. You want majority and you gain it, but on the way out, boom, the opponent still inflicts some damage on you. It may even be that all of your people there are destroyed in the following phases. They've been kidnapped and killed, and you still retain control because the tactical situation is such that, I don't know, the second team will manage to establish headquarters there or something. This is how the battle works. So there are various game effects that allow you to score points, like
performing well in various phases of the battle. You also score points, as we said, when you enable scoring based on regions that you control and crystals that you control. And at the end of the game, after the last round of the game has been resolved and the last scoring has been performed, the player with the highest number of total victory points is the winner of the game.
So definitely a lot of moving parts, as I said in my introduction, but they move together well. The overall engine is pretty simple. I didn't feel that this was an advanced game. Complexity was medium, actually, even towards the light side of things, possibly, because so much work has been done at the design level to integrate a lot of the different rules, all the different things in the game components and the mechanics. You have your own party, and you'll get to know what your race does and the unique abilities, the unique flavor, and then you will see the overall profile of the other people, even if you may not know exactly what every structure of the opponents do. You get a sense of their philosophy, of their general approach to things. The same for a lot of effects such as the spawning and respawning of the trogs, the exploration tokens that bring unpredictable events, the event tokens that I like very much, and so we're just surprised to see all of these mechanics that again are pretty different from one another going together so well. We have had deck building games with the spatial components. This is one such game, but it doesn't feel like the board is unnecessary. Actually, the board is the main thing, but you're still fueling actions with cards that you can manipulate with decks that you get to build as the story progresses by buying those valuable cards. And they are valuable, and they very well should be so, because to get one you need to spend an action, and you have such few actions in the game. This is something that struck me from when I was reading the rulebook and was confirmed during gameplay. This is an extremely tight game, precisely because you have, in the best case scenario, 15 actions. And some of these are almost non-actions. Like getting a new card is not, it's a long-term thing. It's not something that turn, boom, you're doing something that drastically alters the situation on the board. Enabling scoring, that's what you're doing, and looking at what other people are doing, which is a nice idea, precisely the term. When you're doing so, you get fewer things that you can do, so there are more ways for other people to try to catch up with you. The first turn almost feels like just introduction prologue. I'm moving out, maybe getting some new recruits first, moving out, maybe I start building a structure, I get a new card. So I just started moving out of my headquarters, and the turn is already over, and the game may be over in 3 or 4 turns. This being said, it seems so tight from the rulebook that I was almost worried that the game would amount to nothing, to almost nothing. It would be over before it started, before we realized it. In truth, I was extremely pleased by the discovery that the game still has a structure, still has a lot of meaningful decisions, precisely because those actions are so important, or so meaningful. Then each of them will be a decision that you will want to think about. You will want to make sure you don't waste an action. So everything feels very meaningful, very tight. A player that I played it with commented that he liked the fact that the game was so short, but not in the sense that he couldn't wait for the game to be over, but precisely because of the weight, the meaningfulness that each decision got to have, because each move is worth so much. And some good moves, of course, will give you a lot of stuff, will give you a lot of resources, will allow you to score a lot of points, but you will also have sometimes to take some actions that do not feel that profitable right away, to be able to set yourself up for that great one action that scores you a lot of points. So very tight, very meaningful. I love the fact that every decision matters. Because of this, however, that also means that you need to have players that more or less have the same level of experience. An experienced group having 1 or 2 novices, those novices are gonna suffer. Or the experts are gonna play in a less brutal way than they otherwise would. Because it's a game where you will make some tactical or strategic mistakes the first time that you play, even if you play with all the rules right. and those reverberate across the entire game experience, because one or two wrong moves or really unprofitable moves can get you behind and can make it hard then to catch up. This being said, again, if you're the one left behind, too tough for you, too bad for you, because really no one is there to help you. On the other hand, there is the opposite mechanics. It doesn't mean, which is more balanced, which is if you are starting to run away as the leader, then the other players can gang up against you, and of course that may reduce your advantage. There's a diplomatic aspect also in this idea. You're trying to convince other people not to gang up against you. You're trying to keep a low profile to get a sense of the fact that you only want peace and love, and you're really not, threatening anybody's, as you're destroying their people with droids and with all sorts of crazy technologies. So there's even a little bit of diplomatic element there. But players really have to not to take things personally. If you get, like sometimes you have in games with more than two players, those feuds as two players get locked into a Mortal Kombat, you're gonna regret that, and they keep wasting resources just attacking each other. The third and possibly the fourth players are gonna have an easier time. So you have to keep that balance in mind. You have the game should be played in an organic way in which all players keep an eye on what everybody else is doing. Psychologically, when you start destroying people or getting destroyed, it's easy to forget that. But again, that's not something you can blame the design for. It's just a design that has an emotional component, and you have to try to keep it, to keep a certain critical distance for you to be able to have a chance to prevail in the game. In any case, the main point is this: it's a very tight game. I like that. It just so happens recently I played several games that had like a long initial period, a long first phase in which not much happens, and then they raise to the crucial part almost all of a sudden towards the end. Not here, because when the game is over, you'll be able to remember almost every move that you took, and you'll be able also, because of this, to analyze it, and you'll feel in control. Well, that card that I bought turned out I was stuck with that card in my hand the whole game. That's now I know better. So I like the fact that you do have interesting options. You do have very interesting interactions with other people. The board is very small, and people are going to start elbowing each other very soon. I like, again, the fact that on so many levels, everything that is in the game matters. Knowing what the opponents are doing, knowing their unique abilities, seeing where everybody is, because everybody's close to each other rather soon after turn one. Making sure that you do not waste a single one of your actions. All of these elements go together very well. So with the one caveat that the learning curve, strategy-wise, not rule-wise, can be a little steep, because you really need to maximize every single one of your actions. With that caveat that maybe the first game will be sort of like a Three Stooges movie where turns out that people keep doing completely inefficient and ridiculously ineffective things. With the exception of that, this is a game that really is fun and it's a solid design. I definitely enjoyed playing it. I liked how all the different elements came together, which they did. They came together much more organically than I could have expected from the list of things that can happen in the game. I love the tightness of the design. I love how meaningful everything felt. Always nice to see non-symmetrical gameplay that's organic, where things go together well, although the groups play in such different ways. Production-wise, everything looks really good. So definitely a good product. I'm pleased with Cry Havoc. I'm glad I picked up a copy of Gen Con 2016. Definitely a very good game, and one that I recommend to anybody who likes games that have a challenge in the tactical strategic components. They're not hard to learn, but it may take a while before you master them. And of course, learning to master a game that is challenging to master is part of the fun.